Hey, Marianne, do you know what happened on December 7th, 1941?
Wasn't that the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Yes, it was. FDR called it the day that will live in infamy.
Oh, man.
And then 4 months later, another tragedy struck in our hometown of Kewanee, Illinois.
I have a feeling I know what you're going to be talking about.
Let's go to the museum.
All right, cool.
Buckle up. It's time for Kewanee Memory Lane, where we cruise down the 4 lanes of Kewanee history with a detour of fun uncovering the past, coming to you straight from the Kewanee Historical Society in the heart of downtown Kewanee. Here are your hosts, Marianne and Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne.
And I'm Marianne. I would like to welcome you to another edition of Kewanee Memory Lane.
Yeah.
And Leanne, I could see by the prop here that perhaps we're going to be talking about fire.
Yes, we're going to talk about the Great Kewanee Fire, also known as the Fire of 42, also known when the town burned down. So that happened on April 13th, 1942. And previously we had talked about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and that took place in December of 41. So this is just 4 months after the U.S. entered World War II.
Wow.
And that part of it just really fascinates me. I mean, it's tragic. There were no lives lost. Let's just get that out right now, which is amazing. But most of the 2 city blocks here were gone. So when we start putting up pictures and things, I want to call everybody's attention to what was built as the Kewanee National Bank, Kewanee Savings and Loan Building, Kewanee Savings and Loan Building, which is at the corner, still standing at the corner of 2nd and Tremont, the northeast corner of 2nd and Tremont. It is the white building. It's the only all white building there is. So in a lot of these pictures for reference, if you can find the white building, you'll know where you are.
For those of you that are about my age, Lambin's jewelry store was there.
Yes, it was Lambin's, and then there were some restaurants in there, and now it's the Kotap Gaming establishment. So that was originally the Kewanee Savings and Loan. So Monday, I kind of want to go through the timeline of how the fire progressed and what it took with it. So Monday, April 13th, 1942, at 1:30 a.m. So everybody was sleeping. The first report was put out by Thomas P. LaChance, the night security at Kewanee Dry Goods. So it started at Kewanee Dry Goods, which was the major department store in Kewanee, Illinois. It was built as Lyman and Lay in the late 1800s, I believe, and it stood where basically the parking lot for Union Federal is now, and it was a 3-story structure. It was huge. It took up, I think it took up four lots, so it was 112 to 116 North Tremont.
Oh, wow.
It started on the 2nd floor, and there was no cause of the fire ever revealed. Everybody thinks it was probably electrical, and all the buildings around here were still old buildings made of wood. So it just tinder rocks.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was at 1:30 a.m. So at 2 a.m. across the street where the Elks building is now was Kewanee Public Service. And Kewanee Public Service was here's a picture of the front of it. It was
cool.
It was the electric company for Kewanee, and also the appliance. They sold power and appliances.
Yeah, kind of weird.
That's kind of weird. But so at 2 a.m. it had crossed the street. By 2:30 a.m., Kewanee Dry Goods, the Leader Store, Carps, and the Rialto Theater was gone. So what that means is, I told you where the Kewanee Dry Goods was. North of that was the Leader Store, which is Breedlove's now. Next to that was Carps, which is the little shoe store that is on Breedlove's now, and then the Rialto is where
The Rat Hole.
the Rat Hole Theater is what it was called, is where currently New View Furniture is, or Spurgeon's.
So, like in an hour's time, it was just
it was gone.
eating through everything, like burning through. Wow.
And as it came across the street, it took out Kewanee Dry Goods, and then it moved south and took out JCPenney, which is the Salvation Army now. And then it damaged what was City Furniture, which is Breedlove's printing operation over there. So
you're
it
telling
damaged
me this
it.
Fire jumped across the street?
Jumped across the street.
From the east
Apparently
side.
there were some winds.
Oof.
Yeah.
And then you just wonder what kind of equipment they had back then. But anyway.
Right. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Too. So it jumped across the street, and they saved Kewanee, City Furniture, and they saved the Star Courier building, which is the Johnson's building now, because they created a water wall with the sprinkler system from the Star Courier.
Whoa.
Yeah, that
Otherwise,
and
that
this is
piece of history
1942.
would be gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so all that would have been gone.
Wow.
But other than that, everything on this block was gone. That was the only thing on this block saved. So this building was gone. Here's a photograph of the aftermath. This building here, it was a bank, and that is we're kind of sitting right here right now. None of this was saved. It ended up having to be knocked down because it was too far damaged. But all of this burned, and then all of it on the back side. On the Chestnut Street side, basically, there was the Baker building, which is the senior citizens building that we say now.
That's now
So
vacant.
that's now vacant, and so that was a big building. And then next to that was a very large it was Parkside Garage, is where they worked on cars.
Okay.
And that building was we have pictures of it as a livery stable. Do you remember, with horses in front of it? So that was a very old building, all wood. And then next door to that was a car dealership, and so the car dealership had a parking lot.
So it literally is like just going around the block.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It just
Wow.
and it took it all. And so by 3 a.m., the spread north and south, and I told you about the water wall, the bandbox, which was right next door to us, which is where like the hub is, and Tailored Cuts is now. That was the bandbox, the Key Theater, and the Baker building. So the Baker building is the corner of Chestnut and Second, and it had just been
southeast corner.
Yeah, southeast corner. It had just been rebuilt because it had been destroyed by fire in 1930.
I didn't want to jump in and say that, but I thought there was another fire there.
Yeah, 1930. So 10 years later,
They rebuilt it again.
they rebuilt it again, and it was there was this funny thing. There was these side lights from. I'd have to find it now. From the newspaper that said the Baker brothers were wondering if they're jinxed. Because
well, you kind of have to wonder,
yeah,
after
only 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just looking at this picture, I mean, you'd said that we had entered World War II. Right. And then this looks like a war zone.
Yes.
It's just
Doesn't
it's
it,
got to
though?
really bring it home.
Right.
It's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
wow.
So, Mr. Richards, who we have talked about, he did write into the newspaper because in 1991, Dave Clark had asked people who had lived through the fire, because it was their 50th anniversary of the fire, to write into him to tell him what they were doing or what happened in there. And Mr. Richards, I thought this is Mr. Richards. He says, Harry, quote, Ted Orr came to my home at 2 a.m. and rapped on the front window with his car keys and woke me up hollering, "Get up, Bob, the whole damn town is burning."
Oh my God.
They had to get up to the Eagles at 211 West 2nd, which I have that's this picture. We'll put the pictures up on the screen here.
Oh, Oh, man.
With the Eagles was above Duncan Liquors, which would be now where Ash and Everett are.
Okay, so not quite to get Hippard's, further down. The Cablevision, not quite that far.
Right,
as the
right.
Cablevision.
Yes.
Okay.
Not. That was on this side of the alley.
I was just referencing how you talked about Gant and Prohibition.
Oh,
and it was
right.
kind of that same area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
No, it was on this side of the alley.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see that's the alley.
Yeah.
They had to get up to the Eagles at 211 West 2nd. The club was on the second floor above Duncan Liquors. They gathered 11 fellow Eagles members and saved 6 slot machines, which were illegal, but moneymakers. That's what Mr. Richards wrote. The officers' chairs, 2 cash registers, the initiation paraphernalia, ritual books, pictures, secretary and treasurer's records, and some other small items. But I just think that's so funny because, now we have some legal gambling, but there was always gambling.
Well, I'm going to reserve comment. So.
But I just love how you put illegal.
And I'm
but
thinking the liquor
moneymakers.
stores underneath, and that could be like an accelerant, but it wasn't quite.
I don't think it needed to be an accelerant.
I know, it just is terrible. I'm thinking of safety. It's
Right.
That's so scary.
Yeah.
And to be woken up in the middle of the night.
And if you think about it, all the buildings here on North Tremont had upstairs where there were apartments. All these buildings.
Or offices.
Or something.
Yeah.
The Baker building was full of tenants.
Man.
Not just the businesses were lost, but people lost their homes and things like that. So that was by 3 a.m. It all spread. By 3 a.m., Mayor Mark Saunders, and I really have to give props to Mark Saunders. I didn't know him personally, but he seems like a guy that just took charge. Because he had to, because he was the mayor. But at 3 a.m. that day, Mark Saunders gave the famous Kewanee Must Rebuild speech.
I remember that in that mural.
It's famous to Kewanee. But where he talked that, we have to rebuild. This is just too much. It has to be rebuilt.
They did the mural, the Fire 42. That's one of the quotes that's in there. It's just very, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I know where
Yeah, that's where it is. It's over there on the...
well, they had to move it. But
it's over here on the alley that People's Bank owns. On West 2nd on the north side. So that's at 3 a.m. By 4:30 a.m. So the fire started at 1:30. By 4:30 a.m., Fire Chief Al Stulsatz, the uncle to young Stooley, in case anybody wants to know that, declares the worst is over, and the Parkside Hotel and the Peerless Theater are no longer in jeopardy. What happened is they regrouped. They basically knew this was going to be lost. And so they regrouped all over Chestnut Street and just started throwing everything they had onto the east side so that it wouldn't blow over into the Park side and to the Peerless.
Oh, that was good thinking.
Right. At 7 a.m., and that's 3 hours. It was gone in 3 hours.
Well, I'm just imagining you're already tired. You're already, your emotions are heightened. You're on edge.
Right.
You're anxious. You're just, and then.
And it's 1942. Nobody had texts.
And I know nowadays when things happen, as soon as people hear sirens, everybody wants to go look, see what's happening.
Right.
And so.
Well, that happened here too.
Okay.
At 7 a.m., the Red Cross was stationed in Davidson's Cafe at 205 North Tremont. So that is right north of the Oddfellows building and the little
Yeah.
And they were also huddled. The people from the Baker building were huddled inside the lobby of the Parkside.
Oh wow.
And here's a tidbit: a man named Paul Weichel, Wicall, I don't know how to pronounce it.
I'd say Weichel.
Weichel. He ran the Parkside Grill, which was the restaurant inside the Parkside Hotel. He lived in the Baker apartments. And so he went and he cooked for everybody.
Oh,
even
that's
though
so nice.
And his stuff was gone.
How thoughtful of him.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and plus
I'm sure that's his job,
kind of want to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he knew that he wasn't going to save anything. But they also, they had some time to evacuate.
Mm-hmm.
He did get his piano down 2 flights of stairs.
What?
They saved his piano.
We're saving slot machines. I mean,
Yeah.
But
And then
I mean,
there's-
he has a love for his piano. I get that, but the slot machines, that's wow. But anyway,
Well,
he had to have had help. Like,
Oh yeah, there was
obviously.
3 people that helped him. But in the basement of this building, there was a tailor, and he saved everybody else's clothes, but he didn't save any of his.
Oh my goodness.
So God bless him for doing that.
Yeah. Again, community coming together.
Right. And at 10:30, 50 state police arrive to direct traffic because of the influx of looky-loos.
Looky-loos. I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna have
what-
to use that.
Yeah,
Looky-loos.
when you drive by slowly.
I've been guilty of being a looky-loo.
I am
I'm
too.
not gonna lie.
Everybody has. So.
But man, at this point, it's like stay out of the way so they can do their job.
Right.
We're talking about safety here.
And if we look at this was the morning after. There's nobody on the streets.
Well, and I'm just looking at the National Guard guy in the picture with the bayonet.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
So in the end, there was 60 members of the Company C Illinois Militia Reserve from our armory here that were called up. That's part of these people here with the guns. American Legion members were deputized as police.
Wow.
Rock Island Civilian Defense Corps workers and others patrolled the streets to keep traffic from downtown. Thousands came to see the devastation. Yeah. And then firemen were, and resources came from Peoria, Galesburg, Wyoming, Tulane, Cambridge, Galva, Princeton, Neponset, and Bradford. And also the fire brigades from Walworth and Boiler.
Whoa. That's like the most I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, but they couldn't pump a lot. I mean,
well,
they didn't have the kind of pumper trucks we do now. And
that's true.
I
have to remember that. Yeah.
And although the article said that the water mains in downtown had been redone and made larger, so that really helped save that they were able to pump so much water.
Wow.
But obviously, there were $2 million lost. $2.5 million is what they estimated the total loss of Kewanee. And that would be over $47 million today.
Wow.
And then, the buildings that burned were not the only ones that damaged. On the north side of the streets, windows were blown out from heat and, and
collateral damage,
and everything in those windows, smoke damage, everybody upstairs in the apartments, smoke damage. So, they weren't all everything.
Did you hear if there was any looting or anything? Or I don't want to
Mr. Richards said that Duncan Liquors was looted. Which, why not? So this all happened middle of night, early morning of April 13th. Wow. So April 14th at 7:00 a.m. the rebuilding was set into motion.
Well, I mean, which would include removing debris. So,
yes.
somewhere. So.
Well, the trucks had already been called from some wrecking company in Peoria. So they were already on their way up,
I'm just imagining the devastation, and then just to feel so empowered, like we're gonna recover from this,
I bet you that Alice standing in there in her skivvies is not feeling empowered.
Well, just like we're gonna.
Yeah.
Who's Alice in her skivvies?
I don't know, but I could just imagine some girl with pin curls and sitting across
I
the street.
know. I just, recovering from a fire is hard, and then just to,
Right.
But I see your point. So.
But the mayor had done and I'm sure that he had been on the phone since that time. Mm-hmm. And what spurred this on was December 7th, 1941. Mm-hmm. At this time, Boiler and Walworth were in the middle of production for the war, and that was a lot of people that were needed. Mm-hmm. And when people need produce, or I don't know if there was produce, but dry goods or clothes or anything, there needs to be stores for those people. Mm-hmm. So as of Tuesday, they had put Mason W. Haig from Peoria in charge of the from the War Production Board, and an emergency order of $160,000 for critical materials was approved. Wow. That's by like 8 a.m.
Wow.
And that's $2.1 million today. And then they got a call from Washington, D.C. Reconstruction Finance Corp. That will aid in refinancing the rebuild.
To little old Kewanee, Illinois.
Yeah, because to refinance it before the insurance adjusters did their thing, they had access to money to rebuild. Oh, and by noon on Tuesday, this is, a
little more than a day.
Yeah, 12 hours since the beginning of the fire. A preliminary report was sent to Washington to the Emergency Repair and Maintenance with a list of needed building supplies.
Wow.
And Kewanee was assured that all would be made available. All the concrete they needed, all the steel they needed,
That's amazing.
All the wood they needed. This is the middle of the war, and we just entered, and people are going off to war and things like that.
Wow.
So Mark Saunders, hightailed it back and forth to Chicago and Peoria, and met Governor Green, Illinois governor, came a couple days later, and, what can we do? Well, I want to say, dude, it's already been done,
Where were you a day
Where were you
ago?
2 days ago? but
We've already talked to Washington, sir.
Yeah, that's kind of Illinois.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that.
Oh.
But here's one thing interesting. Architect John Scribbins. I looked in the directory, and he is the only architect listed in the directory, okay, in the Kewanee. He was also the Chamber of Commerce president. Guess who was the architect for the entire build? John Scribbins.
Oh, wow.
Poor guy.
Neat. Well, a lot of undertaking,
Yeah, well,
And just thinking about how this building that we're sitting in was rebuilt, not as a bank, but...
Right, and...
Right? It wasn't a bank anymore.
No.
Okay.
No. And the Whiting Home trustees, I could go into the Whiting Home. That might be another episode, but the trustees own this building, and they built it for Carps. Carps moved over here.
Gotcha.
And so it was rebuilt for Carps. But all the buildings most of these buildings, like I know our building is, I know Elk's building is made fireproof now.
Nice.
And if you go in the basement of our building and you look at how it's constructed, like the floors, it's all concrete. Which is heck to nail into.
I still don't like our basement, though, just so you know.
Yeah, right. Well,
yeah. Never mind.
So as of April 17th, a couple days later, Elks will rebuild definitely, as long as a deal for a large department store goes through. They didn't mention which one.
Oh.
The Curley estate officially will rebuild, and that is the Elks is where the Elks is now. The Curley building is JCPenney, Salvation Army, and right next door to us.
Oh, wow.
And the Baker building will definitely rebuild, and so will the Key Theater. And Baker's owned Key Theater, too. And then 1 week afterwards, they released the military that was guarding the streets. So a week later, the streets were reopened, even though there was, devastation and stuff like that. So at the end of the year, they had a recap in the newspapers. All this material I got from the Kewanee Star Courier that is scanned at the library, and also from some records here. And December 31st year recap. This is what is already completed and doing business, okay? Florence Beasley's Bandbox, which is where Tailored Cuts is.
Okay.
Yeah, that little building. The Whiting Home Trustees housing Carps, which is us. Baker Building Brothers housing Bergen Dines, which was the pharmacy. Public Service Building, which is Public Service moved from where the Elks is to a little building over here on 2nd Street. It is now Breedlove's. Okay. The Curley Estate, which is JCPenney and Curley and Sons. And then almost finished is the Leader Store, which is what Breedlove's is. And W.T. Grant will commence rebuild at termination of war. And W.T. Grant purchased the Lyman Estate. So that was Kewanee Dry Goods.
Okay.
And what they built was Brown Lynch Scott, which a lot of people will remember as a department store, and Sigmund's Furniture.
I didn't know that.
What?
Okay. About the Brown Lynch Scott part.
Yeah,
That's
that was rebuilt by W.T. Grant.
Very cool.
So the buildings were fireproofed, and so I have a picture of the downtown after it burned, and we'll put that up. And if we look at this picture, Marianne, you can see that's the Kewanee Savings Bank, the white building in the upper right-hand, mid upper corner, and you can just see it's still smoking and everything that's gone.
You can see where it literally jumped across the street. It's crazy.
Yes.
Wait till you guys see it. Wow.
Yes. And then one of the stories was that Walter Pauley rushed from Stark County to help his friend Harold Hawthorne, who owned the Parkside Garage. I'd mentioned Parkside Garage is on Chestnut Street. The building was one of the oldest in town and was once a livery stable. The garage itself was gone, but a room to the south, which was protected by the south wall of 114. It was really 110 because these tires that Frank Tremont had in his tire shop was in 108. To play it safe, they moved all the new tires across the street. The fire didn't destroy the tires, but a lot of them were stolen. And then we'll show you a picture, but here's a picture from the newspaper of them guarding the tires. Private Benson of the Illinois Reserve Militia Company C, shown here guarding tires. So,
I mean, I guess you needed tires, but dang.
Right. So, and we will be showing also, let's see, that's the morning after, the rebuilding effort. Well, the Elks became Block and Cool. Block and Call? Block and Call. Cool? Okay, Block and Cool. And that is the current building that is there now. So, so that was rebuilt. And like I said, that was built fireproof. And then the other one I had a picture of Tremont Street, and this is a little later in 1957, showing Brown Lynch Scott and Sigmund Furniture. And then this little building here is the old Union Federal. So, and then there's a Leader store,
It really did change the
facade of downtown, right.
Still neat, though.
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
Sure.
I'm glad that Kewanee was able to recover.
Yeah, and so this is a picture of the rebuilding in 1951, and you can tell it's almost all rebuilt. The number one that's on the screen became McClellan's, which is Spurgeon's, which is New View. Number 2 is Dixie, which is, I think it was a department store or a clothing store or something.
I've never.
Okay, and that is now the shoe store of Breedlove's. And then number 3 became, it was vacant until 1954. And then it was a hardware store and some other little stores, and that is now Brash and Everett.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You have some neat pictures here.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of stuff downstairs in our archives, and I do want to tell everybody that everything that we do research on for our podcast, we are keeping together in binders in case if somebody says, "Hey, you guys talked about this, I don't understand it," or something like that. We might be able to help you a little.
I can't
easier.
recreate my notes, and I don't want to take the time to it's all there, so it's just still preserved.
So people can see it, and then if it's not there, it's easily accessible through our archives and stuff like that. So
wow,
yeah, the fire not only was here, it damaged this side of 2nd Street and the north side, but apparently sparks flew everywhere because Dot Larson, I don't know, that's a name around here, from the Ball Hawks. Well, her family had a jewelry store and another little store over on Main Street, just north of the
CSB Bank.
And just north of the Hog Capitol building, and you can see that still says Dot's photo on it on the building, Well, Dot Larson had written to Dave Clark, and she had remembered that she was on the roof of her family business on North Main putting out sparks caused by flaming shoeboxes from the Kewanee dry goods. So flaming shoeboxes.
That's crazy because
that's like 2 blocks.
That's east, but the wind blew the fire to the west to burn this side, and then it was just all, you know, and just holy smoke. And how, wow.
Yeah. So I think there were a lot of people on rooftops.
Probably to make sure their property would be safe.
Mm-hmm. And I know that Rick Johnson's parents, Rick Johnson has the hub, his parents had a clothing store on North Main Street, and they heard about the fire, and they were worried about it jumping over 2nd Street and getting up to their building. So they took all of their inventory home. They went and loaded all their inventory into their car and drove it home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it didn't even get close. So, but you know,
can't
safety.
blame them. Can't blame them.
Say.
You kind of panic.
Yeah. So, there were a couple funny things, not funny, interesting things. Do you know what what was showing at the Peerless Theater over there next to the hotel? Mm-mm. A ball of fire.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, how appropriate.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. Police Chief George Nelson issued a request that the lady to whom he loaned his overcoat when she came from the Hershey apartment early today would please return to him at the police station.
Wonder if he got his coat back.
I don't know. The Hershey apartments, the Hershey building was right here, and it has. He was. What did he do? Was he a pharmacist?
Druggist. Pharmacist,
yeah. And then there was apartments above him.
And they had the Siona building. Or beauty school upstairs. Yeah, his wife, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. And, the Baker think that they were jinxed. The members of the Kewanee Police Department had a chance to test their marksmanship by shooting out windows and burning buildings so that water could be directed in the buildings. Boys with guns. Anyway.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it was tragic, but I think Kewanee learned a lot. And I think that it shows Kewanee's resilience.
Yeah.
To
it's heartwarming to see how community pulled together.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, if you guys ever want to see the materials that we use, we use for our podcast, they are in binders downstairs. I do want to remind everybody that if you join Kewanee Nostalgia, which is the Kewanee Historical Society's Facebook page, a Facebook group, that you do have to answer the question. Otherwise, we will decline it. It just asks what your interest in Kewanee is. We do have a public page for us, KewaneeMemoryLane on Facebook. And I do want to thank a woman named Margaret Lukey Hurlbut, who made this scrapbook about the fire that is the most well put together scrapbook. She saved everything. Lots of different newspapers and everything. Dave Clark, because he did have the forethought to ask.
That's pretty cool that he did that.
Yeah, I think that's neat. Mike DeWald for all the pictures that he does. Oh my gosh. He scans them and fixes them up and posts them on Nostalgia and our website. If you're ever looking for a photograph of something special, we probably have it. And I want to thank Kewanee Historical Society itself, John Looney, our production guru, and viewers like you.
And we will podcast for tacos.
Yes, we will. So until next time, we'll see you at the museum.
Thanks for cruising with us today. We hope you enjoyed the show, and you'll join us for our next cruise down Kewanee Memory Lane.